Hello, YouTube friends and neighbors. In this episode of Guitar Lick Minute, which I may rename Guitar Lick Moment, since a minute doesn't seem quite long enough to cover some of the topics on my fabled list of topics that I plan on covering in these videos, this episode of Guitar Lick Moment will discuss and demonstrate how blues musicians like Joe Bonamassa, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, practically anyone who plays electric blues with a sixth string, this will talk about how they managed to get from one end of the fingerboard to the other while staying in key. Players who take on this challenge often refer to it as breaking out of the box, but I feel this is a bit of a misnomer. Sure, players want to break out of the single box they've been using, typically the box I call the pentatonic position 1, but really, the fingerboard can be viewed as a series of connected and even interconnected boxes, or blocks, or chunks. And what players are often doing when they play lovely, cascading, bluesy-sounding single-note lines is simply playing a few notes from a box and then repeating the motif as they move through the other boxes. For instance, they all just have 2 notes per string, and you can identify the telltale shape of box 1 in the other 4 boxes. So let's talk about the structure of this roadmap of the fingerboard. There are 5 boxes that will span the fingerboard from the open strings to the 12th fret. These are numbered 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. I do this instead of using 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are the scale notes that form the lowest note in each box. So therefore, the blocks are referred to by those numbers. The first block, block 1, called chunk 1 in my diagrams, is the one most of us are already familiar with. It's shown in open position and is repeated at the 12th fret. Chunks 1 and 7 are perfectly connected with no overlap. All of the other chunks have some overlap. I would suggest working with these chunks one at a time until you develop muscle memory for each one. As you do this, you may notice there are certain areas of many of the chunks that seem a bit awkward to navigate. Oftentimes, players compensate for that by simply avoiding that area of the block as they build their runs. Take a few handy notes in one block, slide up or down to the next one when you get to any awkward parts, and play a few more handy notes. Chunks 3, 4, and 5 can be challenging to navigate at first. But the good news is, you can actually avoid those areas by just sliding through them down to a block that you like better. So what about motifs? Knowing the chunks inside and out by running up and down them may be good exercise and can yield some good jamming material, but can begin to sound predictable. Another approach is to play what many people refer to as contours. A contour is a descending or ascending run of scale notes that go back a few notes to begin again. For example, you could play the first 4 notes of a scale, then play another 4 notes, but this time not starting with the first note you used for the first 4 notes, but perhaps the next one as your first note. If you do this over and over as you move up and down the scale, you get a more interesting series of notes. Here is a 3-note contour. Here's a 4-note contour. And here's where things get interesting, a 5-note contour. This is the figure that is used a lot by Bonamassa and Eric Johnson. And of course my own concoction, a 7-note contour, which is really a 3-note and a 4-note contour played back to back and repeated. So give these a try, work through some of these exercises, and see if you can expand your knowledge of the fingerboard. Before long, you'll be connecting up these boxes and playing up and down the entire fingerboard. This has been Guitar Lick Moment. We'll see you next time.